Cool. All right. So, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum, Runtings Rude Boy, Nabil Aziz, becomingthealphamuslim.com, and the Becoming the Alpha Muslim podcast. Welcome to our first live broadcast. Lucky for me, I didn't have to do any tech setup because my guest is a regular a YouTube broadcaster, and he does quite a few live streams on his channel as well. So we were all set up and ready to go. So today, what I wanted to do is, if you had listened to my podcast last week, you would have heard Mad Mamluks on there. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to feature and promote other Muslim male content creators, of which Abu American Little here is one of them. So just to welcome you all to this broadcast. But for Abu American's listeners who might be joining in, let me just real quick introduce myself if you don't know who I am. My name is Nabil Aziz. I am the founder and I guess editor-in-chief of becomingthealphamuslim.com, which is a blog and podcast for millennial Muslim men. And at Becoming the Alpha Muslim, we teach men, first of all, how to be good at being men, as well as how to be good men. And there's a slight distinction between the two, because you can be a good man and not be good at being a man, and you can be good at being a man and not necessarily a good man. Anyone who has read, for example, Jack Donovan will know this quite well. So that's my introduction. So Abu American, Assalamu alaikum, bro. How you doing? Could you please introduce yourself?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah. Yeah, well, as said, Abu American. I have a YouTube channel, a Facebook like page. I'm on Twitter, but not so actively. What I do is basically, like Nabil explained, I just talk a lot about masculinity and intergender socializing and politics, if you will, for lack of a better term. A lot has changed between men and women. You know, old school social contracts that were in place for men and women no longer exist, and a lot of confusion is taking place. And so we found that, you know, since the feminine imperative and gynocentrism has taken the front stage in modern society, Muslims and Islam have sort of absorbed that somehow. And it's caused a lot of confusion, and it's making a lot of people unhappy. And so it's my desire to do, you know, clear things up, specifically from the male side of the fence. You know.
Yeah. Now you mentioned a few. I guess they seem like they're technical terms, and I'm sure. I mean, they'll be obviously very clear for your audience who are used to this this discourse. But for my audience who might be sort of newbies to this discussion, we're going to try to keep it as basic as possible, and you'll find from the questions that I'm asking you that these are sort of the ABCs of you know, your audience, and they'd be sort of already well aware of these things. But today we're talking to an audience that is not necessarily what you would call quote unquote red pill aware, and they're still dealing with I mean, most of my audience are American Muslim men from sort of, I guess, the West. So they're steeped in the feminist discourse, and quite a few of them are having trouble reconciling, you know, the discourse that we find in Islam with respect to gender roles and what society is telling them, and what, you know, modern Muslim women are telling them. So let's just get right into it, and I'll ask you my first question.
Absolutely.
رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So first question, shouldn't I be asking women on how to deal with women? Isn't it like mansplaining for men to teach men about how to behave with women?
No. I mean, that's sort of like saying you're going to go ask fish how to be a fisherman. You know, I mean, we're not speaking literally here, but figuratively speaking, that's technically what you're doing. Now, I'll try and bring it down a bit, but the reality is this. I'm going to speak in some absolutes here, and of course, women mostly will disagree with me, but try and stay with me and understand the discourse. To the viewer, women are pretty poor at abstraction. We have to understand this absolutely. Solipsism is a female's point of origin. Solipsism meaning from a self, from the standpoint of my perspective is the perspective. So when we look at a discourse about living with women as a man, women have zero experience living with other women from the standpoint and perspective of a man. She can tell you, according to her current needs, what she would like to see in a man, what she thinks men should be. And all of this is subjective according to her age, according to her menstrual cycle and where she stands in it. She can tell you all of what she thinks a man should be or what she wants from a man. But what she cannot tell you objectively, subjectively, from any standpoint is how to be a man in a relationship with, or in any sort of relationship, personal or professional, with a woman as a man. Only a man can teach you the male perspective of dealing with women. And this comes with time and experience. So this is where older men, what I'm trying to do, take my 45 years of experience with relationships, men, women, both direct and indirect, and convey it to men and how to deal with women. So no, absolutely not. You should not take, and this is just a simple fact of like you said, a lot of guys aren't red pill aware. This is something that goes into another zone that's called PUA, pickup artistry. And that's a whole nother topic. But let me just say, when you're learning this stuff to establish and maintain a relationship, a permissible relationship with a Muslim woman, you have to understand that you just don't take advice on women from women. Again, their standpoint is from solipsism. So automatically, she cannot abstractly take your position and teach you something. She's got to automatically take it from her standpoint and talk to you from that standpoint. And it's going to be distorted.
You mentioned solipsism. Is this why, for example, it is difficult to have a logical discussion with women on, I guess you would say, controversial issues or issues that are that have sort of an emotional point to them, where she only is able to discuss from the way that she feels about the issue and not on the facts and demerits of the issue objectively?
Absolutely. There's a book series. If you read secular books, there's a book series called The Rational Male. And in the third book that I'm reading right now, it actually focuses on raising children, specifically sons in the 21st century. He devotes an entire chapter to this, that because of the solipsistic stance of women and their emotional state, they can only perceive any conversation, regardless of how general it is. You could say women menstruate generally in the middle of the month. And statistically, this might be true. I'm just making something up here. And what that woman will do is she will take your general statement and then apply it to her specifically because of solipsism, because she can only, because she's poor at abstraction because of solipsism, view that conversation from her stance. And so now your general statement has become a direct attack upon her. You see, her focal point, her starting point is self. So if you make a general statement about the female gender, she automatically personalizes it. And then, of course, you get into these conversations where now you're dealing with an emotional woman who feels personally attacked. It can be unlearned, but it's difficult. And it's something you have to do with your girls from an early age. If she's reached 20 without learning this as a process, this process of thinking in terms of abstraction, it's going to be an uphill battle in terms of a conversation.
But I mean, the sort of counter argument will be, well, don't men do this too, to a certain extent?
Yeah, but that's a bit hard to deal with because it doesn't really make a lot of sense a lot of times. You know, when you say, I generally don't accept that as an argument. Let me just say that. This is why I'm having a difficulty, like right now, coming to a response and an answer for that, because that's generally not a correct answer in terms of any conversation you have. Well, men do it too.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so
not yeah. Cool. And you mentioned now what you're doing is you're taking your experience and trying to convey it to, younger men and, your peers and things like that. So then I guess that would be your credentials and credibility to speak about this issue, is that you're your many years of experience in, living life and dealing with women. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yeah. One thing I do, and one thing that takes a lot of time, and why I've actually another reason why I've moved away from making content is on WhatsApp. I have a lot of personal conversations where men actually send me their conversations in terms of screenshots, and then I spend a lot of time breaking down these conversations and explaining to them what's happening. Sometimes it's hypergamy, which is the female reproductive strategy. Sometimes it's solipsism. Sometimes it's what we call congruence testing, where a woman is checking you for congruence. Are your words congruent with your character and personality? This is when women get really, they get that difficulty. This is more of a personal, interpersonal relationship, or if maybe the guy's just reading too deep, and I spend a lot of time doing this actually with a lot of different individuals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, I guess it's a technical term, hypergamy. I remember on Facebook a few months ago, I was reading something on my timeline, and I saw this woman sort of lamenting the low quality of the men of her ethnicity. And then in the comments, I guess one of her male Facebook friends replied, "You just need to surround yourself with good men. They're out there." Yeah. And then she replies, "I know there are great men out there, and I pray Allah grants me one as a husband." I mean, what's going on here? Can you explain this to me?
Oh, yeah, this is hypergamy. So the female reproductive strategy. This is a biological term. This is a biological thing, and this is something that's specific to women. Hypergamy is bifurcated. That means there's two phases to it, two parts to it. One is where there are two parts that bring together to create one. The first part is she looks for good genetics in a man who's healthy, strong, whatnot, has like signs of like high testosterone, so that she has healthy children. So this is the physical aspect where a woman will look to a man who's muscular and fit. The second part is a man that's good at provisioning, and where she would be concerned about her offspring and the ability for this man to provision for them. Now, it's very difficult to combine these two. Generally, you find that they don't go together very well. This is the unicorn of men, if you will. The man that's an alpha provider, because generally this is when we come into this alpha beta conversation in regards to men. Now, what's going on here in her particular conversation is this, and I made a video about this just today. What you find is nowadays is this: women in general are taking on education, career, and whatnot as a pathway to life. And so because of hypergamy demands that a woman dates or marries. If they're non-Muslims, they're going to date. If Muslims, we're going to marry a man who is her equal or greater than her. She generally does not marry down. This is not how hypergamy works in most women. Women want a man that's better than her, either socially, economically, or in education, or altogether. Now, this woman is probably, I'm speculating here, highly educated, or at least educated. Now, women have come up here in education, and the idea in their mind was becoming what they want. If I become high quality, if I go where high quality men are, aka university, I'll score a high quality mate or a higher quality one. But this is not how it works. The higher up a woman goes in any sort of strata, be it social or economic, the smaller the pool of men that are available to her gets, because the vast majority of men are not like super high quality. This is not to say that you're not a quality man in general, but when we speak about hypergamy, we're talking about finances and economics. These are generally the first things that women look to.
Social status, popularity,
absolutely,
looks, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So now here's what happens. She's up here and she's looking for this up here, but the vast majority of the men are down here. Now the opposite happens for men. When a man gets higher, all of the women here equal to him and down become available to him. So a massive pool of women become available to him. Now, naturally, when he's up here, he's not going to want to deal with his equal, because generally in today, women have an equalist idea of a relationship. He's supposed to go to his, high street job or whatever, or his banking job, and then come home and she wants him to wash dishes. He's not going to want to deal with that. And this is generally what happens when women get up here. She's trying to look at men from an equalist stance. And so what she's talking about, where all these good and great men are, is when she was here, before she got up here, men, this vast pool, were aiming for her, and they were showing her large amounts of deference. They were showing her large amounts of chivalry. And the higher she got, the more she cut those men off as availability. And then that small pool of men appeared up here. And these men, they are arguably, rightfully arrogant, and they don't show her deference nor charm. And so she comes with this, where are all these great men at? Where are all these good men at? Now, the guy in the conversation, what did he try and do? He tried to say, oh, look, here's the good guy. Here I am. Look. And one of the worst things you can do is try to convince a woman that you're a good choice.
Yeah.
Men are about action. Women are about speech. So you have to show it. You can't just say, oh, look here, and then try and convince her logically that you're a good choice. That's not how women operate. They operate off emotion. And so his comment was all about trying to make himself a viable choice to her. So she automatically upped the game on him, automatically letting him know that you are cut out of the conversation. She went from good men to great men. Oh, I'm a good man. Oh, well, I need a great man. You didn't convince her. You convinced her that you absolutely are not what she wants. So this is hypergamy speaking. He sabotaged himself.
That's cold as ice. Okay, so now, let's see. Now, when she's going from here up to here, I'm assuming that takes a certain amount of time, and it also takes a certain. I mean, it's not every woman that can reach the level and play the game that men play. For example, if we take female CEOs, for example, now those female CEOs, they're as manly and as high testosterone as a lot of the male CEOs. So if you would want to sort of touch on what is the male sexual strategy? What do men find attractive in women? Do they find these high testosterone CEO women attractive, or these high accomplished women attractive?
No. In my humble opinion, the vast majority of men I speak to, the attraction markers for men are youth and beauty. Period, point, fact. And I actually said this in my video today, that women should do things reverse. She should, early on, once she finishes her general education, she should go right into like marriage, find a good man who's got a half decent, future building. We have the wali system in Islam, so you understand how to pick out a good man using your wali, and start having children early on. We're talking from whatever legal age is. What is the legal age of, having children? Let's say 18, since we're in the West. She should right off the rip find a good man and get married and start having children. Later in life, she should start career, because what will happen is this: when she marries this man here at 18 or whatever else, the man will be interested in her in youth and beauty. So right now, when she's here in her youth and beauty, she is at the highest point in her sexual market value, which will be referred to as SMV from here out. Her highest market SMV is going to be when she's from about 16 to about 24 to 25. After that, her sexual market value starts to gradually drop. So the vast majority of men that women want access to, the high quality, to the just general bad boy alphas or whatever else, all of those men are available to her at her early age. The older she gets, the less attractive she becomes. Even to the general masses of men out there, she becomes less attractive the older she gets. Because what's going to happen? CEOs, do they aim, when you look at these CEOs, what do they aim for? They aim for the 19 to 20-year-old Playboy bunny type girls. They don't go for the 45-year-old, CEO businesswoman. No, men are attracted to youth and beauty. So take advantage of your youth and beauty as women to secure a high value, high quality man. And then later on, when this high quality man is above you and you look up to him and you're like, oh my gosh, he's so amazing. When you start rising up, he's already been rising up also. You will permanently be in a position below him, which will permanently put you in a position as a woman looking up to him. What happens in hypergamy is if you get a man who's here, what's equal with you, and you start rising up with him together, you're young and he's young, and you both come up together, and then maybe you shoot up past him. And that's a problem, because hypergamy demands she gets better or equal to her. And if you're not there as a man, what's going to happen? This is where we get no fault divorce. This is where she gets, I'm not satisfied anymore. this is where we get all these things, and men get divorced and they get divorced raped, and then she goes and finds somebody else who's better than you, maybe her boss or whatnot. So women should understand that men are attracted to youth and beauty, and then what she should take advantage of that youth and beauty, use it to her advantage. There's no problem with that whatsoever, because men should leverage their wealth and their success to get a beautiful woman. It's a counter strategy. It's a balance. And she should get a man here, and she should be here, have kids, and then rise up later on with education. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So what you're saying is, for example, if a woman were to marry down, or were to reach a situation where she surpasses the man in status, she would start to resent him and not respect him anymore. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And this isn't an active thing. People should disabuse themselves from the idea or the concept that this is active, because then that sounds evil. And hypergamy gets a bad reputation because of this. A lot of men are sour about it, but there's nothing to be sour about. It's just the reality of how it is.
Yeah.
It's a passive thing that happens in her mind and in her body. Some women it's active, some women understand it, but the vast majority don't. It's just a feeling, and they become dissatisfied. They resent you. And the more she has to pay for, the more she has to take charge of something, the worse it's going to get, because women want to naturally follow. They don't want to be leaders. They want to be led. The most ardent, hardcore feminist wants an absolute alpha leader. Let there be no question about it.
Now, how would you think this manifests itself in sort of the Muslim community? Because obviously we don't date, and our concept of quote unquote alpha male is a little bit, different, because chasing after material wealth is something that is, sort of counterindicated by Islamic teachings. Not to say that it's bad or anything, but it's not viewed with the sort of aspirational lens that it is in a non-Muslim society. So who are the sort of alphas that, women in the Muslim community will go after, in your estimation?
Okay. Well, within the Muslim community, this is a wider topic that I've been covering recently, the fallout in the Muslim community. But in the Muslim community, it's going to be definitely the da'is. And this is probably why we're seeing little spates and spatterings of like da'is falling into situations with young ladies. They look to these guys. He's a public speaker. He's got a large following, He's got an alpha presence. He's comfortable. He's relaxed. He's assertive in front of huge crowds. And people look to him for knowledge and guidance. And, people want a man that other men want to be. And most of the time, da'is, speakers, callers to Islam, these people who are in public speaking positions, or scholars, less so scholars, they tend to, fall into problems less so than da'is, because da'is tend to be younger men. These are generally the alphas of the, Islamic community. And you find, unfortunately, there was a young man recently fell into a problem. What was his name? But well, we won't get into his name, but he's a famous speaker, and he had some accusations leveled against him that he had some physical improprieties with some sisters, and it turned into a pretty ugly public thing, which it shouldn't have. Allahu musta'an. But hey, this is the type of men that women in the Islamic community would look to as an alpha. We have other issues that are taking place, but within the perspective of the Muslim community, these would be the alpha men that women would aim for.
Yeah, I think I know which issue you're referring to. Now, there's something interesting that I noticed in the sort of facts, alleged facts that came out about this issue. Now, it seems like the women he was dealing with were okay with the inappropriate communication and inappropriate conduct until they found out that he was hollering at other sisters. So, like, shorty, like, what makes you think you're special? You would dime a dozen. Like, fangirls are hollering at this guy, and then what makes you think you're the only one?
Yeah.
So, I mean, is that something to do with this? Now, obviously, if he's a quote unquote alpha, now he has his pick of the buffet, right?
Absolutely.
So, and especially in Islam, now we are allowed to have, 4 wives and things like that. So, isn't it sort of, one, it's hypocritical, and the second is, isn't it obvious that somebody in that situation will sort of pursue what's available to him?
I mean, I think it's natural. I think it's understood. When we look at this hadith, and I can't quote the exact source, there's a hadith where a man asked the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "What is most beloved to you?" And he gave the order. We understand that when he gives the order of something, he gives the order in importance. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in order, a salah completed, a prayer completed within the proper time, the women, and then the fine smelling misk, like the fine smelling perfume oils. It's understood. I've left you no greater fitna, no greater tribulation than women. It's better to walk behind a lion than a woman. How many times, if a man and a woman are alone, shaitan, the devil, Satan, as the non-Muslims would call him, is the third. We have a religion filled with warnings of the dangers of women. Some of the mufassirin, the interpreters of the Quran, even said that the ayat saying men were created in weakness was in regards to men being unable to resist women. I mean, the warnings are so numerous that we have to accept that this is an intrinsic part of our biology that Allah has put in us. Period, point, fact. So, trying to keep everything together here, build yourself as a man and understand that you're going to have large amounts of women coming at you. Build it and they will come. This is in regards to you too as a man. The more you build yourself economically, socially, financially, whatever else, women will come. And it's going to be difficult to resist that temptation. It's going to be exceptionally difficult to resist that temptation unless you're an abnormal man who has something wrong with you in terms of testosterone production or, something else. So,
Which is becoming more and more the case, especially in the West.
yes,
Studies have come out saying that testosterone has been in decline for, the past, I don't know, 50, 60 years or so, and sperm counts have decreased and things like that. You have a whole generation of men who are low test, even though they're sort of in the prime of their lives.
there's a book out actually about this testosterone collapse of the West. I would suggest it, but the guy who wrote the book, I know him personally. He's got very, very anti-Islam, anti-Muslim stances, and so I wouldn't recommend the book just based off of that because I talked to him personally, and it's a good book, but I just don't like him.
Mm-hmm.
Stance, So.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed, I don't know if you've ever been on these marriage websites or marriage apps.
Mm-hmm.
I've been testing a few sort of to see, which apps are good to sort of find a co-wife on. And I'm testing this one called Muzmatch. One thing I noticed is, and this app Muzmatch is sort of like a Muslim version of Tinder. So you have
Okay.
swipe right, swipe left, everything like this. What I've noticed is that low quality women
Mm-hmm.
have extremely high standards.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have a shorty who's in her 40s, she's divorced, she's overweight, and then she's expecting, basically, I mean, she has very unrealistic expectations of what she can get out of a husband.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any thoughts on this? What's going on here? I see a lot of, in terms of, I mean, they're not attractive. They're older. Some of them are divorced. Some of them are, they're single moms. They've been working a long time, or they've never been married. They've reached their mid-30s and they've never been married. What is going on here? Why do they have such unrealistic expectations?
Whew, okay. Well, there could be multiple things at play here. So we'll start off with the easiest first and foremost. The easiest can be what I call alpha widow. Now, alpha widowing could be where like she was with a very high quality man, and somewhere along the line the relationship went sour, and now the standard for any relationship is that man that she used to have, that high quality man. Generally, women will not go back down on what they used to have. If she had a husband with his own house, she's not going to move into an apartment, you know, with a guy. She wants a guy with a house. If she was in a relationship, a marriage with a guy with a car, she's generally not going to marry a guy without a car. Of course, there's exceptions to this, but I'm just trying to keep it extra simplistic for the viewers who might not understand this. The second part, which is more complicated, is society on a whole. And this is where the term gynocentric comes in. Now, gynocentrism is the lead up to feminism, where an entire society starts to like feed into the female ego and ideology of what women are, what they deserve, and how they should be. One stems from the other. So in the West, in specific, gynocentrism is at an all-time and unbelievable high. And it's an ideology that's pushed by both men and women. And this ideology is pushed by men. I actually made this video about it, about how a beta is made. It starts off with their mothers. And their mothers, as well intending as they are, they train their sons to take on an ideology that is unattractive to women, meaning, oh, women are everything. Women can do this. Women deserve this. Women deserve that. And then women start to believe this stuff. And then there's an entire industry from music to television, from teaching them that cougars are the new hot thing. What is this TV series called? I never watched it. Sex and the City. You know, that they're the new hot thing, that the 40-year-old is hotter than the 20-year-old, you know, and that having children and coming into a relationship with another man's child is something that should not really be taken into consideration, including fat or whatever else. That a man is supposed to switch off his biology entirely and love you for who and what you are, despite the fact that hypergamy doesn't allow the same in reverse. You know, so gynocentrism and the entire society in the West is all about pushing the female need, the female sexual imperative. One thing you have to understand is, in order for the male imperative to succeed, the female imperative has to take the back seat. For the female imperative to succeed, the male imperative has to take the back seat. Western society has taken feminism as its methodology, and it's putting the female imperative above the male imperative, and it's causing a lot of trouble. It's causing a lot of problems. It's leading for entire generations of unhappy women. And scientific research and statistics show that women are at an all-time high in terms of being unhappy. There's no other generation of women who have been more unhappy than our current one. And that's because you're giving women everything they want, and they don't want that. Believe it or not, women don't want to be handed and told that they're great and whatever else. They want to earn it. But society and men without backbones are just handing women compliments. They're chasing women because they're thirsty, you know, and they just taught, oh, woman is, if you look in the African-American community, that women are goddesses, and they're sucking up this thing with female ego, you know, and they're eating it up. And now they think, oh, I deserve that Brad Pitt, you know, this is what the average woman believes, because this is what society has told her on a whole. And she could be 80 points over her recommended BMI. She could, you know, be missing a tooth and have an eye patch. And there'll be some guy on Facebook who will inbox her like, oh, you're so beautiful and you're so amazing. How is she not supposed to have this unrealistic idea of who and what she is? How?
Yeah, I get you, man. And let's translate that into the Muslim community. I've noticed a lot of Muslim speakers, preachers, sort of, pandering to women, as it were, putting them, I guess you would call it, I guess, putting them on a pedestal, going on and on about, how amazing it is that these women wear hijab, and how they're so strong and blah, 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 blah. And then these women turn into, these, American Apparel models with hijab on, because I'm worth it type dealio. They turn into, divas. I think we're sort of mirroring the Christian community in its pandering to women. And as you know, in the Hadith, it was prophesied that we will follow the Jews and the Christians like a lizard goes down the lizard hole, right? So I think that's sort of a symptom of these people living in the West.
Absolutely. 100%. Absolutely.
Another thing I've noticed is that in the Muslim community now, there are calls from public figures, men and women, advising and recommending that men who are marrying for the first time marry older women, for example, 30 and older, or marry, widows and divorcees. Is this a good idea? What are your thoughts on that?
I've had this conversation before, and I mean, when we look at the Hadith, the Hadith, the recommendation is to marry virgins, young virgins. Marry them young. People should marry young. No, I think it's a bad idea in general, because again, men are attracted to youth and beauty, and generally, what we aim for in a marriage is reproductive success, right? We want to have children and raise those. We want to raise those children upon Islam. Now, what happens is, and I have a little short video on my Instagram about this, my Abu American Instagram. When female fertility falls off a cliff at about 27 years old, if she has not had a prior pregnancy, successful pregnancy. So barring a woman having a child at 18, 19, 20, if she has not had a child up to age 27, her fertility starts to fall off a literal cliff. It's a rapidly declining and disappearing thing. So if you're a young man wanting to marry and leave behind a biological legacy, aka children, it's a bad idea to marry older women, just from a biological standpoint, period. It's not a good idea, because if she's not from a lineage or an ethnicity that is traditionally known to have a high fertility rate, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle. I know a woman, she's been married 2 years. She's 36 years old. She's Polish. She's white, Caucasian. Caucasians, and I'm not being racist here, but we have to do, when we look at some particular, generalities, ethnicity does come into play. Yeah. And ethnically, Caucasians are known to have low fertility. She's been trying for 2 years consistently to get pregnant. She can't. She's 36 years old. Perfectly. She's a personal trainer. She's a very fit, very healthy woman. Cannot get pregnant.
Yeah.
She's a second, she's married to a man who was married before. He successfully has fathered children with other women. So it's not the man, obviously. And I've seen this play out more than once. So it's a really bad idea on that alone. Marrying a woman with another child or with other children and whatnot, this is good. I would say you could do this if you're taking her on as a second wife. But as your first wife, no, don't do it. I would advise against it, just from pragmatic, practical stance.
Yeah. And I suppose if you've been divorced before, or if you're a widower yourself, widower yourself, then it would make sense to sort of marry these women, because you already have prior experience dealing with women, as it were. Whereas the guy, especially if he's a Muslim guy and he's not had that much interaction with women, as I suppose we live in our communities where the genders are segregated. He has no experience dealing with women. It's much harder for him to handle a woman who has a lot more life experience than him.
And women start off relationships. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Women might not like to hear this, but the reality is women carry a lot of emotional baggage from previous relationships. There's a study done that shows, and you can apply this to Islam also, but this was specific to non-Muslims, that for every sexual partner a woman has, this is a study done by a woman, there is a 7% increase in chances that she will separate from her next partner. After 5 partners, sexual partners, she has a 35% chance of leaving her next partner. 10 partners, she has a 70% chance of not having a successful relationship. These are realities that transcend religion. These are, statistical studies that show consistently that a woman stays in a relationship with her partner when she's a virgin the longest. Now, when a woman gets older, she's gained relationship baggage over the years, whether she's had sex or not. One way or another, women, being the emotional creatures they are, they find emotional surrogacy. I'm sure you've worked in a career field where you've had women who don't have relationships and they come to work and they're really crabby. They've created a type of relationship, and the drama, I always say the roller coaster, and you have to give your female partner, you have to give her the roller coaster, because women thrive off emotional turmoil. They bring that to work because they need it. And so she has, regardless of whether she's a virgin or not, picked up emotional baggage over the years. So sorry, I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that study. So that study, that for every additional sexual partner the woman has, the chances of her leaving her current partner increases. And then the first study that you mentioned about the fertility dropping, those are two sort of very important scientific bases to justify our position on, marrying younger women and virgin women, especially. Have you noticed this thing where women will sometimes do or say things to deliberately disrespect you, and then even sometimes they'll even outright say it. I just did it to see how you will react. What is going on here?
This is called a congruence test. They have a more vulgar term for it in the red pill world, crap test. But you take the crap and put the more derogatory colloquial word in there for it. It's called a crap test. The scientific, if you will, in terms of behavioral anthropological studies, it's called a congruence test. Now, what's happening in here is this is actually what we call an IOI, an indication of interest. That means that woman is interested in you, because women don't do this to men that they're not interested in. What she wants to see now is she wants to test congruence. Is this man able to respond? How will he respond in regards to me testing his speech? So she wants to see if there's congruence between your speech and your personality. So these are easy to spot because all women, like I said, who are attracted to you will pull these congruence tests. And that's, if you're looking to get married, maybe you're working in an office building in London and there's a sister in there and you're trying to get a hold of her Wali and she starts doing this to you. It's a good sign in terms of like you might have a shot at getting a hold of her Wali. but yeah, it can be annoying if you're not expecting it, especially as a man. And I don't think a lot of men understand this. They just take it, oh, this woman's like insulting me, she's challenging me, I don't understand what her problem is. But women aren't. This goes into a broader concept. So let me just go ahead and break this down. Women are sexual gatekeepers. So this means that a woman waits to decide whether or not she's going to pick this man or if she's going to reject him. Men are sexual opportunists. We take the opportunity to gain access to women. So as opportunists, we also create opportunists. This is why they say men go hunting for women and women sit back and wait to be hunted in that sense. So women don't have a particular methodology of like, going out and sorting men. This is why women always wait for men to approach them, So this is part of their strategy when it comes to congruence testing. It's an IOI that you're supposed to pick up, an indicator of interest that you as a man are supposed to pick up. You're just supposed to get it. Yeah. For them, direct communication in terms of a hunter, it's biologically not what they're wired for. That's what you're wired for. You have to look out for these things, and understand them.
Right. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Let me just pick up real quick. Okay, so where were we? Now we covered the congruences. Okay. So now some men and most, if not all women would argue, not every woman is like that. Why are you speaking in universal terms about women and making such broad brush statements about them? They'll say, well, I know a woman who is 36 and is a neurosurgeon who married a 25-year-old imam who came from a poor village in Pakistan. So obviously you're wrong, Abu American.
We actually talked about this earlier, how women from their solipsistic stance will try and eliminate an entire general, concept and idea that's proven to be true and eliminate it from their specific stance because they know one story that, goes against the general norm that we see in society. And therefore the general norm is now null and void. It's ridiculous. It's ludicrous, but that's just how women operate from, like I said, from their solipsistic stance. We actually covered that earlier. So when men do it, this comes from a position of, how do we explain this? I call it beta blue pill programming.
White knighting.
White knighting. Some of it's white knighting. Some of it is AFC, average frustrated chump. What it is a lot of men are so ego invested in their methodology and in their way and in their idea of this, particular woman existing, that if you come along and you shoot that down with a general statement, you've destroyed his entire ego investment into a particular type of woman that's out there waiting for him to find her. This unicorn woman, she's gonna love me just for me and not because I've got a great job at, HSBC or whatever else, He wants to be loved for the sake of love. And that's not how women love, And so when you come with something, I'm using love as a general, as an explanation here. So when you come and you tell them, hey, you know what, that's not how women love. They don't love just for the sake of love. Because you, as a man, you are the true romantic, and a woman is a relationship pragmatist because of hypergamy. And that's true. When you take that away from him, you've taken away his entire ego investment on what women are and how they love. You've basically told him you're never going to be loved for the sake of love. Can you imagine if your entire ideology of relationships and women was built upon that and someone came and took it away from you? I know because I lived it. I did. And it was just 4 years ago. And that's what brought me on this path to understanding women in relationships.
Most men.
It was jarring. It was almost destroying. And this is where we speak on other things, where men go into a rage phase when you finally get the truth and you understand things. And then what do you do with that rage? Some guys will never come to terms with that. They would rather stay with the blinders on and just say, no, not all women are like that. And he'll spend his life thinking that I'm going to go to the village in Mirapur and I'm going to grab this girl and she's going to be so pure and whatever else. And then she comes to the UK, picks up the adaptation of the society around her because hypergamy demands it. And then she throws him under a bus 5 years later. And he's like, what happened? I got her from the village. She should love me. She should appreciate it. No, Griffith's Law, my friend. And it's just... So this is why men do it in general. And some of it's white knighting. But white knighting is virtue signaling. This is where he wants to try and, like the guy in the conversation, oh, look, there's good guys over here. Just by default of saying, look at me, I'm different than other guys. I stand up for women's rights. So I'm the best, potential pick for you as a potential partner. It's a type of, validation seeking from women. And when you do that, you take a stance of, I think you said pedestalizing. Yes, pedestalizing women. And women don't want to, when you put someone on a pedestal, speaking literally, they have to look down on you. Women don't want to look down on their men. And when you put yourself in a position that's lesser than her, well, then automatically she's going to look down on you and she's not going to want you. So, their strategy is counterintuitive,
Yeah. Now, you mentioned 3 very important points that I sort of typed down real quick because I didn't want to forget them.
Oh, okay.
So let's go backwards. You mentioned this white knight. I mean, there's a particular one on Facebook. He'll go on long rants about domestic violence and respecting women and double standards regarding gender in the community. And I just found out a few days ago. And then this guy will make these Facebook posts, okay, and then he'll have dozens, if not hundreds, of women applauding him and cheering him on. I just found out a few days ago, this guy is in his 30s and single.
Yeah.
Like, okay. You're going through all this trouble and like you're not even smashing. I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly. Women don't find that stuff attractive. Men need to stop doing that. Here's the thing. Women in specific, will watch my channel and call me a sexist and then inbox me later on talking about, oh, what you doing, where you at, why don't you come see me, this, that. I'm like, hey, hold up, slow down. Literally, I'm called a sexist and I've got women beating down my door to get married. This is not even a joke. I'm not bragging. Women like a man who's confident in himself. When you start taking the female line, you become unattractive to her. She doesn't want a female. She wants a man. Just like when we as men don't like masculine women. Who wants a strong, aggressive, assertive, independent woman? We don't want that. Who wants that? That's what we are as men. We want feminine, soft, gentle, caring, women who are nurturing. This is what we want from women. We don't want masculine attributes from men. We want that. We'll go to jiu-jitsu or boxing or whatever else, and we'll go beat each other up. That's when we're looking for that.
Yeah. So then it becomes sort of like, instead of now a relationship, it becomes a competition. So a man with a masculine woman or a feminine beta male man with a feminine woman. Like, if you have you heard that meme where the people say, don't try to understand women, women understand women, and they hate each other.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But this is bad. This happens a lot. And, and these are guys that end up being, when they finally do get into a relationship, because generally there'll come a point when a woman will like break down and say, you know what, I can't, hypergamy she can't maximize or capitalize on it. This isn't an active thing. And so she'll pick the next available man. And eventually one day this guy will be it. And when a woman decides that maybe she doesn't want to be in a relationship with this guy, this is what I call psychosimps. And this is when a guy flips out because he spent so much all of his life, pandering to women, and he finally got one. And when she wants to leave, he'll kill her or beat her up or he'll become aggressive. These very men who say that they love women so much and whatever else, when he's about to lose something he spent his entire self trying to get, he's going to turn violent. It's a consistent pattern in behavior.
There was a guy recently, African American dude, was it last year or a few months ago, where he went on like a killing spree and he killed like a bunch of people, like driving around killing people, and then he stopped to get like chicken McNuggets, and then the McDonald's people like called the cops, and then finally the cops, like it was like suicide by cop basically. And then he was Facebook living it or something the entire time, or periscoping it, and in that he's talking about basically the reason why he did it is because it's this woman, left him or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
And it's crazy. Just on another note, just talking about this, and I'll say this to the men watching, gentlemen, you got to have a non-scarcity mindset in regard to women. You have to consistently understand that there's like 7 billion people on the planet and over half of them are women. You can't just focus on one woman and think, oh my gosh, even your own wife, love her to death. Understand that just as quick as she came in the door, she might flip out one day and leave. It's just how it is in the 21st century. Be ready for it and be ready for, to go ahead and grab again. You got her, you can get someone else.
Yeah.
Don't have a scarcity mindset, gentlemen, or you'll end up beating up women and freaking out.
Yeah, and we've been sort of speaking about women in a very sort of general way, that they have certain attributes. Are there no more what you would say, quote unquote, traditional women left?
There are, but my personal experience is the further east you go, the more you find them. It's difficult to find them in the West. The way to get a traditional woman in the West from the West is to build yourself into being that top super high percentage of men. We call it the 80-20 rule. 80% of the women are pursuing 20% of the men. Those 20% men are those men who are super high value. You can do this 2 ways. Socially, aka learn game. And when I say learn game, I mean for the purpose, gentlemen, of a permissible relationship with a woman in an Islamic marriage. Do not do anything otherwise. A'udhu billah. And the second is financially or socially, economically. You make yourself into a high-powered businessman, but nonetheless, you're still going to need game. Or what's going to happen is a woman's going to take you for your cash. You're going to get divorce raped one day because if she thinks you're a sucker, that's a sign of weakness. Women despise weakness in men, and she will hate you for it, and she'll try and hurt you. Understand that if a woman finds that you're weak, she'll try and destroy you, and she'll love you. But it's a passive thing that happens in women's minds. And I don't know why they do it. I don't understand the dynamics of it, gentlemen. Despite me researching women so in depth, I don't understand it. But I know it to be fact. So
it's like they're very Machiavellian in the way they deal with men.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's like they're like ruthless. Straight up gangster.
But I forgot I didn't finish. So if you want a traditional woman from the West, you have to become that high value man. Then she'll do anything it takes in order to maintain a relationship with you. She'll become traditional if she wasn't before. She'll learn to cook. She'll learn to dance salsa or whatever. I don't know. Whatever she thinks it is that it takes to keep you happy, she'll become it.
But then you mentioned needing game. Even after you're married, I guess the game never ends, right? You still have to stay, like you can never slip up, right? You can never get complacent.
It actually becomes a little bit more complicated after you get married. Before marriage, you want the game of attraction. You need to build attraction before marriage. Now, unfortunately, things aren't done as they are supposed to be done Islamically. Most of the time you find that men and women are speaking amongst themselves. Maybe they work together, went to university together, whatever. Socially, they've come across one another. So your imperative at that point is to build attraction. After marriage, Your imperative is to build desire. You need her to desire you after a relationship. Because what you have to understand also is this: your wife or is going most likely on social media. And, my daughter's 17 now, and there's no secrets. I get on her social media, and you should see her inbox. She doesn't have a single picture of herself up. She's on Facebook maybe once a month at best. Her inbox, just because of her name, is filled with thirsty dudes hitting her up. The same thing's happening to your wife. At no other time in history has a woman been presented with so many hypergamous options in terms of a potential mate like they have today. In a month, your wife will have more offers for a relationship with a man than maybe our grandmother would have in her entire lifetime. So you have to maintain and create and build desire with your wife after a relationship. And this is when I say men should learn the art of PUA. PUA on its own is a disgusting thing. It creates a society full of promiscuous, disease-ridden sexual savages. But when you use it within your relationship, oh, it's amazing. I use it in my relationships, dude. I'm completely happy. I'm 100% happy. I even let my women folk know what I'm doing, and they don't mind. They appreciate it.
They want it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
And then, shoot, I lost my train of thought again. Yeah, I mean, okay, I mean, maybe I'll think of it while we keep talking. So now the third thing that you mentioned is how women will use this one exception to sort of negate what is generally true for most women. And nowhere is that more common than when Muslim women will use Khadija, our mother Khadija radiallahu anha's relationship with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in what I would consider a way that's very disrespectful to the Prophet, actually, because we know that as Muslims we need to have the utmost reverence for the Prophet's status, and the way they speak about this relationship, it is not appropriate to the stature of the Prophet, because we know in our theology that he was always the Prophet before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the heavens and the earth. He was the Prophet of Islam. It's just that he was granted his mission started when he was 40, and what I find is that example is based on two faulty premises. The first premise is that she was 40 and he was in his early 20s. Now, apparently, from what I've learned from some Hadith scholars or some students of knowledge who have transmitted it, that narration is weaker than the narration that says that she was 28 and he was 25.
Absolutely.
And that changes the game entirely.
100%.
Yeah. The second thing is that the Prophet Muhammad came from a noble family, as was Khadija. He was part of the aristocracy or the royalty of Quraysh. So it's not even if you were to take the 40-20 age, it wasn't a marriage, down or whatever, a'udhu billah, but it was sort of an equivalent marriage in terms of their social status.
Absolutely.
And the final false premise is that the Prophet was the employee of Khadija, and I just saw this clarified a few months ago. Alhamdulillah, that Allah revealed this to us, that it wasn't actually an employee boss relationship. It was a partnership, a murabaha. What Khadija did was provide the financing. And then Prophet Muhammad ﷺ went and did the business using that, financing. It's like, I guess you would call it as like a small business loan, or a silent partner relationship. And once you look at it from this perspective, now the entire game changes, and it loses this quote unquote trump card over for the Muslim women.
Absolutely. I'm actually looking for a quote here, and I want to read it to you. It's something I just put up the other day, and this is very important, and it will explain a lot of what you're talking about right here. Give me 1 second, Morgan.
Sure.
Okay, here it is. A woman's first directive is to defend her sex's imperatives even before considerations of religious conviction, what's important to
Mm.
us, marriage vows, or espoused personal ideology. This is the chapter on women and solipsism in the rational male. And I find this to be absolutely true. We find that today, out of a hypergamous solipsistic need, women will literally distort the religion to fit their agenda and their needs. And so, it's a really dangerous pathway to go down. This is why on my YouTube channel, I tend to, although I let people know I'm Muslim and I pepper my speeches with Islam, I generally stay away from the topics of Islam. Not that I don't have a proclivity towards Islam. I absolutely do. It's just a dangerous area to go into because at the end of the day, we're going to die and meet Allah. I'm going to be careful with the religion. Women don't think in terms of like that. It's what they need right now. This is why you see them go girling on, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And not all of them, but a lot of them like cheering on what's going on in Algeria right now.
Yeah.
This is why they're cheering it on, because what this done is hypergamously, it's expanded a female's circle and available pool of men, from just Muslim men to also non-Muslim men.
Yeah.
You find women rejecting the Hadith and the idea and the concepts that Muslim men are allowed to marry non-Muslim women. Because what does this do? It puts them in a difficult position. It expands a Muslim man's pool of available women, and therefore, by default, shrinks her available pool, because now it puts her in competition with not only Muslim women, but with non-Muslim women. And competition anxiety is a massive issue for women in general, including Muslim women. And men should play on competition anxiety of women. You should play on it. It makes you more desirable. So, yeah.
How do we do that as Muslim men? Take co-wives?
Yeah. Yes. Nothing is more attractive to a woman than a man that other women want. And this is how you foster competition anxiety and women doing anything, going and arguing with their walis, I'm marrying this man or no one else, and the type of crazy stuff they do to get married to a man.
Yeah.
They will fight tooth and nail to marry a man that is, that triggers her competition anxiety inside of her. Absolutely. You should push for that. Guys, don't think, any men watching this, don't think that women really have a problem with polygamy. They don't. If they do have a problem with polygamy, you're not really the man she wants. You're the man she could get. She's settling for you if you can't polygamously marry a woman. I know you don't want to hear that, guys. There's a lot of ego investment with us men.
Yeah.
I made a video about this, actually. If she's
and
not
part of I think then part of the I guess the onus is on us as men to build ourselves and improve ourselves to the state where we have command over the relationship and the direction that it goes in. Because if you think about, I mean, this is a non-Muslim example. If you think about pimps, like pimps have no problem having a lot of different women in love with them, and they're totally okay with sharing this one guy amongst themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Women don't mind sharing men. Don't high value men. And this is the thing. You made an important point. It's upon us men. Now, this is not to blame men for what's happening. Well, actually, we do face a lot of blame. Gentlemen, women want leaders, and you have to lead. If you don't lead, they're gonna go off on their own and do stuff I always call it goofy, because men have intuition and intellect. And when one conflicts with the other, we refer from one to the other or the other to the other. Women have intuition and intuition. And when one is in conflict with the other, they use one to refer back to the other. So if you don't lead, she's going to do something goofy. And this is what we're seeing happening in Western society and as a whole, and now being absorbed into the Islamic world. Women are being left to their own devices. This is not to say that they're not, intelligent creatures, but they come up with goofy things because of their emotional state. And you really, really have to be a leader, gentlemen. You can't doubt yourself, because the moment you doubt yourself, she is biologically built to smell that. And the first thing she thinks is, oh my gosh, this is the guy who's in charge of me and my offspring's safety. And you're going to trigger congruence test. She's going to turn crabby and mean, and she's going to start testing you to see if you're actually that man that she needs to lead. And then you're going to get frustrated because you're believing these equalist ideas of the 21st century, and it's going to collapse around you. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, that's a very important point. What I noticed is that you can't show weakness because women view weakness with contempt.
Absolute contempt.
Yeah. And I mean, and isn't it, it's like a complete lie, right? They talk about, they want a man who can, express his emotions and, not be so stoic all the time, but that's not what they want in reality, right?
No, they don't want that in reality. That's just another congruence test. I have another saying for this if I can find it. Yes, here it is. In reality, no matter how much a woman appears to have her crap together, she's only one rejection, one personal slight, one flat tire away from a hysterical episode. Despite what feminists would have us believe, women really cannot survive without the support of men. This is why women will forgive men for anything except weakness. Because a weak man is to a woman what one drowning person is to another drowning person. At best, useless. At worst, dangerous. Women are hardwired not only to avoid weak men, but to ruthlessly be hostile towards them. Do not display weakness towards women. Do not. Do not talk about your problems. Don't bring work, economic, financial problems that you are having home to your wife. Do not do it. Go and talk to your homies, find solutions, get it fixed. If everything, she'll detect something's wrong. She's good at that. She's hardwired to do it. But you do not discuss your problems with her. Do not do it, gentlemen. They say they want a man who's open and emotional, whatever else. That's a congruence test. And the moment you say, oh, yeah, I can do that, she's like, that guy's not for me.
Mm.
And yeah.
Real quick, I just remembered an example that I saw on Reddit, and then we'll close it out.
Okay.
I was reading this Reddit thread, and this woman was talking about how her husband was out of a job and he's been looking for a job for a while, and then she comes home from work one day, and then like they start talking, and then suddenly he breaks down crying, and then she's there trying to console him, and she says, I was filled with disgust looking at him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is her husband. Supposedly she loves him. I don't know how long they've been together. They've been through, so many things. But as soon as you aren't the man you're supposed to be, all of that goes out the window, right?
Yep. Yeah. Have a plan, gentlemen. Be confident in it, and she'll follow you.
Yeah. Last question. So now we've had this hour-long discussion. Isn't all of this talk misogynistic and anti-Islamic? I mean, the Prophet ﷺ would never speak about women this way, right?
Wow. I mean, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ himself said, I've never seen a group more devoid of intellect than you women. I mean, this is a statement from the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I mean, this is a statement. I mean, is that misogynistic? Of course not. It's just a reality. Women are emotional creatures, and we are intrinsically leaders. That do we say the ayat where it's listed that two women are equal to the witness of one man? Is this misogynistic? No, it's not. I don't think this is misogynistic talk. I think what it is it's become so, what's the word? Unpopular because of feminism and gynocentrism that it can be billed as misogynist. I don't hate women. I absolutely adore them. I have women in my lives. I have daughters. I got wives. I love them to death. And I want the best for them. And they understand that when they watch my channel. My women folk watch my channel, But misogynistic? Do I hate women? Misogynistic, we have to define this as the hatred of women. No, of course not. We're trying to teach men how to live with women. Why? If I hated women, why would I try and teach men and speak about women in any other way than just forget them? Like MGTOW. We can't say MGTOW is men going their own way. Yeah. That's close to misogynist, but it's not really misogynist sometimes, That would be more misogynist, like just avoid them altogether. They're useless, they're worthless, they're horrible creatures, and they're disgusting and blah, 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 and don't deal with them. Go be gay or live on your own in the bush or something. I wouldn't say that, but you know what I'm saying. You get the idea. That would be more along the line of misogynist. But to teach men that, everything you've learned about women in the 21st century is actually on its head and it's backwards and it's false. And if you act and learn and speak and think in this particular way, you will have the relational success that you seek. Is misogynist? No.
Yeah.
Just,
and there are so many ahadith like this, right? About how women and men should behave in a marriage, and the status of the husband, and how, I mean, there's one that's hilarious, that after I started learning this stuff, I got reminded of it, and then I was like, whoa, this is so true. And it's like about how the wives are ungrateful to their husbands. Like, the guy can do 99 things right, and then if he does the one thing wrong, she says, you have never done any good to me.
Yep.
And that sort of encapsulates what we've been talking about, right? In full.
Absolutely. You know what? And this is something that, like, I mean, alhamdulillah, I believe in Islam, but it's like a reaffirmation of Islam to see, like, contemporary anthropological, psychological, sociological sciences catch up to religion. They have this thing called Griffith's Law. And part of Griffith's Law says that, any past, Griffith's Law in basic says that, like, the woman dictates the relationship. And so when a woman decides that the relationship's over. And that any past favors done are null and void once they have been exacted. So once you've done something for a woman, it no longer counts. And this is part of Griffith's Law. So she doesn't look to the past and what you've done for her. No, it's what have you done for me lately, like the song used to say.
What have you done for me lately? Yeah, I want half.
This was in a hadith, like 1,400 years ago. This was a hadith. And now they came up with an entire scientific process behind it in female behavior. Unbelievable, man, to watch and just see and to learn this, like relearn it from an anthropological standpoint. It's amazing. It's a reaffirmation of the religion, man. Absolutely. We don't need it, but it's just amazing to watch,
Yeah, definitely. It's like I say to my readers, I don't need, red pill theory to tell me how to, deal with women, because Islam has already spelled it out for us. We're just borrowing the language, because we're dealing in English, and we're dealing in a Western context. So we're just using this language to deal with the sort of ideological dominant construct, which is, feminism. I mean, that's a great place to close it out, man. I really want to thank you for having me on your channel and letting me interview you. For those of you who are listening, please like the video, subscribe to Abu American's channel, and hit the bell button so that whenever he produces, he publishes more content, you'll get notified. And for Abu American's listeners, Jazakumullah khair for watching, and for my listeners as well, Jazakumullah khair. This is going to be out. The recording of this video will be on my website in a few days with the show notes, and I'll also be publishing the audio as a podcast. So if you enjoyed the conversation, please, first of all, subscribe to Abu American's channel, and second of all, subscribe to my podcast and leave us a rating and review. So I guess let's close it out, man. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.